Hey everybody, it is Linda and I am in the Thermidor kitchen in our Hyannis showroom, and I'm working on our induction cooktop here, the Freedom Induction, and today I am going to be making some apple cider donuts. So to start off, I've got 1.5 cups of apple cider in my pot. I am going to turn that on to a boil and let that come up to a boil. Then we're going to simmer it until it reduces to about 1/2 cup. So we're going to end up with 1/3 less. So while that's simmering, I'll tell you what else we've got here. We've got 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I've got 1 teaspoon of baking soda that I'm going to add to my all-purpose flour. I've got 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder. It's also going to get added in. I've got a teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. So those are my dry ingredients for this. Then I've also got an egg, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of vanilla, and 1/2 cup of room temperature vanilla. I've got 1/2 cup each of sugar and brown sugar. And my sugar has a little bit of a brownish tinge to it because it is organic sugar, because that's what was available at the store when I bought the sugar. All right, so this is just about down to that 1/2 cup. We're gonna give it a couple of minutes longer, but just in case you're wondering, why am I reducing the apple cider? So if you just drink the apple cider, it tastes great. It tastes like fresh apples, it's really good. As soon as you start adding it into the cinnamon and the sugar and everything else, you lose that appley flavor. So the way to concentrate it is to cook down your apple cider, so you get this apple cider concentrate. And you can actually cook down a whole gallon of apple cider and then store it in your refrigerator and have it ready to use for other things if you're gonna use something that requires the concentrated apple cider. But since we're only doing a little bit of apple cider donuts today, we'll just do a little bit of cider concentration. I've got my oven preheating to 350. We've already mixed our dry ingredients. We're gonna grease our donut pans now. All right, so now that my pans are ready, we're gonna get to the wet ingredients of this lovely recipe. So we're gonna start by melting 2 tablespoons of butter. And once that starts melting, we're gonna add in our sugars. I just don't wanna put them in initially because I don't want them to toast up, but once you get a little bit of liquid in the pan, it's perfectly fine to add those in. We're gonna add in our room temperature milk, and this is 1/2 cup of room temperature milk. Salt, which is a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. I used dark brown sugar today, but you can use light brown sugar as well. You could also, if you wanted to, add some finely chopped apples to the batter. It'll make them a little moister, so you may want to reduce the amount of cider that you add, maybe 1/3 of a cup instead of 1/2 cup of the reduced cider. We don't actually want to get this super hot, just warm enough to melt the butter, because I'm going to add the egg to it. When I add the egg to it, it is going to, we don't want it to cook. All right, so this is all melted in. I'm going to go ahead and add my egg very carefully to not get any shell in the mix. I'm just going to mix that egg right in. Once that's mixed in, we're gonna add that into our dry ingredients. Giving it a good whisk, get everything incorporated. Once that's mostly incorporated, we're gonna add in the cooled cider. It's going to be a very soft batter. Once this is all set, you can either spoon the batter in or pipe the batter into the muffin pans. I actually like to put it into a plastic bag and do it that way. So we're going to go ahead and put this into a plastic bag. Which is easier to do when I have 3 hands, but today I only brought 2 hands to work. We're just going to pipe this batter right into the pan. All right, we're gonna put those in the oven at 350. They're gonna bake for 10 to 12 minutes, and then we'll take them out and finish them off. So when the donuts come out of the oven, we're gonna glaze half of them, and we're gonna cinnamon sugar the other half. I already made the cinnamon sugar. It's a cup of sugar and a tablespoon of cinnamon. It's in this bag, so it makes it easier to cover the donuts. But we're gonna do the glaze in a fry pan. And the reason that I'm doing that is I can keep the glaze right in the pan and just dunk the donuts in. There's plenty of room to dip them and take them out and not worry about anything else. So we've got 4 tablespoons of butter that we're gonna melt. To that 4 tablespoons of butter, I'm gonna add a cup of powdered sugar, a third of a cup of maple syrup, and a half a teaspoon of cinnamon. All right, so the butter's melted. I've added in my powdered sugar. I'm gonna add in my maple syrup. We're gonna whisk this until it's smooth. We're gonna add in our half a teaspoon of cinnamon. And then once our donuts are out of the oven and cooled off a little bit, we'll be able to dunk them in the glaze or toss them in the cinnamon sugar. Okay, so our timer's up and our donuts are done. We're just gonna take them over here, pop them on the rack to cool for a minute or 2. So we're gonna start with the sugared version. So I've got in here, like I said, a cup of sugar and a tablespoon of cinnamon. I'm just gonna take 6 warm donuts, probably 3 at a time so that they fit in the bag nicely. Give them a gentle shake. And then while those are sitting in there, we're gonna dip our other ones. So I've got my glaze here. We're gonna just take them. You can dip both sides or one side. I like to dip one side. Give them a good twirl. Flip them over. And what I like to do is once they've cooled a little bit, just a little, and the glaze starts to harden up, I go back in and dip them one more time so you get a nice thick coat of glaze on top. But there you have it, apple cider donuts, 2 ways.